are children of Adam, hence equal, whatever the color of their skin. The state announced, the Prophet announced that, and slavery, the whole system depended on slavery as it did for many years in the Western societies. The Prophet said that one of the greatest deeds is to free a slave. But because the society depended on slavery, he said, but if you have to, treat them as an equal member of the family. And as a result, something happened in a Muslim world which hasn't happened in any other civilization. Slave dynasties appeared. Slaves became kings. The Mamluks, slaves who ruled Egypt. In India, there were slave dynasties. And then, with minorities, again, you hear that Islam is supposed to be against minorities. Let me just make this clear. In Islam, the Prophet announced that everyone was free to practice his religion. It was a sacred duty to protect the places of worship of all religions. He announced that every person is equal in front of law, whatever his religion or his color. And this incredible case, and I always quote this, that the fourth Khalifa, the head of state of Medina, he lost a court case against a Jewish citizen. So, number one, it showed there was a rule of law, no one was above law. And number two, that a Jewish citizen was an equal citizen. So, Mr. President, when a Muslim society is unjust to its minorities, it is going against the religion of Islam and our Prophet, peace be upon him. So, it is important to understand this. The Prophet lives in our hearts. When he's ridiculed, when he's insulted, it hurts. As we human beings understand one thing, the pain of the heart is far, far, far more hurtful than physical pain. And that's why the Muslims react. And I always thought that if I ever had this stage, I would try and explain this to the world community, especially to the Western community, because having lived in the Western community, people didn't understand this. When I first went as a teenager to England, there was a comedy film on Jesus Christ. It's unthinkable in Muslim societies. So we need to explain that, look, in a human community, we must be sensitive to what causes pain to other human beings. We have, in the Western society, and quite rightly, the Holocaust is treated with sensitivity because it gives the Jewish community pain. That's all we ask. That do not use freedom of speech to cause us pain by insulting our Holy Prophet. That's all we want. And now, the number fourth point, Mr. President, and this is the most critical point, is the reason why I especially came here. It is about what is happening in Kashmir. Before I go on this, I want to make one thing clear, that when we came to power, my first priority was that Pakistan would be a country which will try its best to bring peace. We had been through this war on terror. We joined the United States war on terror after 2001. And Pakistan went through one of its worst periods where 70,000 Pakistanis died and over 150 billion was lost to our economy. And Mr. President, I opposed the war because in the 80s, Pakistan had joined the Western countries in what was the freedom struggle then in Afghanistan against the Soviets. And it was funded by the Western countries. These Mujahideen groups, which were treated in guerrilla warfare, were trained by Pakistan Army, funded by the Western countries, and especially US, and they waged what was a freedom struggle in Afghanistan. The Soviets called them terrorists. We called them freedom fighters. 1989, the Soviets retreated. The Americans packed up and left. Pakistan was left with these groups. Come 9/11, Pakistan joined the United States in this war on terror. And now our government was supposed to, the reason why I opposed joining this war, because here we had indoctrinated them in jihad, meaning freedom struggle against foreign occupation. Now, because we had joined the US and the US had occupied Afghanistan, now we were supposed to tell them that no, this is not freedom struggle and jihad, it's terrorism. So that's why I tried to tell then government that, stay neutral because you will have leverage over them. You will be able to control them. But if you join them, you become collaborators and they will attack you, which is what happened. They turned against us. We went through a nightmare. 70,000 people killed in a war we had nothing to do with. No Pakistani was involved in 9/11. Taliban were in Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda was in Afghanistan. What had we to do with it? 70,000 Pakistanis died. So when we came to power, we decided that we would dismantle what was left of these groups. And this decision was taken not just by us, but by all the political parties in Pakistan. Unfortunately, they didn't implement it. So we came to power, we decided to implement it, and we dismantled whatever was left of the groups. And I know that India keeps accusing us that there are these groups there. I would like the United Nations to send observers, see for themselves what we've done. No Pakistani government would have dared to do this because it would have created strife. But we decided that there would be no militant organizations in Pakistan. So I need to give you this background and to what I'm going to say later on. And secondly, we started mending fences. I invited the Afghan president. We developed a relationship with Afghanistan. We had problems with Iran. We mended fences there. And then India. Now let me just give you a little background about my relationship with India. Because of cricket, and cricket being it's a passion in the subcontinent, I had great following in India. I have friends in India. And I love going to India. So immediately, when my party came, poverty, let's get together. Let's resolve our differences through trade. Let's build a relationship on trust. By India in Balochistan. We caught a spy, Kulbhushan Yadav, who admitted what the sabotage going on in Karachi and Balochistan. So we said, look, let's leave that behind. Let's move forward. Our main priority should be our people. The highest number of poor people live in the Indian subcontinent. Unfortunately, didn't make any headways. Our foreign minister was supposed to meet on this in the UNGA last year. India cancelled it. We thought that it's their election coming up. It's a nationalist, ultra-nationalist party. It doesn't want to cozy up to Pakistan. So we thought, okay, we'll wait till the elections. Meanwhile, a 20-year-old Kashmiri boy, whose father said was radicalized by the security forces in Kashmir, blew himself up on an Indian convoy. Immediately, India blamed us. I spoke to the Indian public on television. I said, if you give us any iota of proof, we will immediately take action, because we've clamped down on these groups. Rather than sending us any proofs, they sent their jets in, they bombed us. We retaliated. A jet, two of their planes were shot down, one pilot bailed out in Pakistan. We immediately returned the pilot, saying that, look, we do not want any escalation. Rather than taking that as a peace gesture, the entire campaign, almost the entire campaign of Mr. Modi in the election was how he had taught Pakistan a lesson that jets had killed 350 terrorists. Complete lie. They had just killed about 10 trees of ours, which was quite painful given that, we are growing all these trees. He then the election campaign, Mr. Modi used words like, this is just a trailer, the movie is about to start. I went into Pakistan and taught them a lesson. This was the election campaign. Okay, so we thought, us politicians make all these statements to win elections. So, okay, after elections, we'll get back to our normal relationship. Well, the moment the elections ended, we approached India. No response, but then we discovered they were trying to push us in the FATF blacklist to bankrupt us. That's when we realized there was an agenda. And that agenda became obvious on the 5th August when India went against 11 United Nations Security Council resolutions which say that Kashmir is a disputed territory and the people of Kashmir have the right of self-determination. They went against that. They went against Simla Accord, which is about bilateral, sorting out our differences through bilateral means, went against that. They actually went against the Indian Constitution. Illegally, they revoked Article 370, which gave Kashmir the special status. They got an extra 180,000 troops there. Total number of security forces in Kashmir now are 900,000. And they put 8 million people of Kashmir under curfew. Mr. President, now I just briefly want to make the people understand, how can anyone do something like this? And for that, I have to explain to you what is RSS. RSS, Mr. Narendra Modi is a life member of RSS. RSS was an organization that was inspired by Adolf Hitler and Mussolini, came about in 1925. They believed in racial purity, racial superiority. They also believed they were an Aryan race like the Nazi believed they were an Aryan race. All that I'm saying can be verified. This is the time of information revolution. You can Google all this, what I'm saying. But it is very important for me to explain this to you so you know what is happening in India. This RSS believed in the ethnic cleansing of Muslims from India. At one point, there was racial superiority of the Hindu race. Secondly, it was hatred for the Muslims and for the Christians, because they believed that this golden age of Hindu civilization was stopped because of Muslim rule centuries back and then the British rule of India. So it was racial superiority and hatred for Muslims and Christians. And this is openly stated. You look at the founding fathers of RSS, Golwalkar and Savarkar. Just Google them and you'll find out. And this ideology of hate is what murdered the great Mahatma Gandhi in 1948. It was this ideology of hate that made Narendra Modi in 2002 do a pogrom against Muslims in Gujarat when he was the chief minister. He allowed 3 days for these RSS goons who were inspired by the Hitler brown shirts. They actually wear brown shirts. This RSS, the Congress Home Minister gave a statement that in RSS camps, terrorists are being trained. And these terrorists butchered 2,000 Muslims and 150,000 Muslims were made homeless. Narendra Modi could not travel to the US because of that. And I need to make you understand this background before I explain to you that what sort of a mindset would lay siege to 8 million people with 900,000 troops. Women, children, sick people, locked in as animals. In fact, of what I know of England, if 8 million animals were locked in, the RSPCA would have made a lot of noise about it. These are human beings. And Mr. President, what comes with racial superiority, these illusions of Aryan superior race, is arrogance. The two go together. And it's arrogance that makes people make mistakes and do stupid things. Cruel things like what Narendra Modi has done. It's sheer arrogance. And it's arrogance that has blinded him from the fact that what is going to happen when the curfew is lifted. Has he thought about it? This hasn't been thought through. What is he going to do when he lifts the curfew? Does he think that people of Kashmir will quietly accept the status quo because India has changed the constitution and taken away the special status? They'll accept that? Mr. President, 100,000 Kashmiris have died in the past 30 years because they were denied the right given by the United Nations, the right for self-determination. 100,000 have died and 11,000 women have been raped. There are 2 human rights, United Nations human rights reports on this. The world hasn't done anything because India has a huge market, 1.2 billion people. Sadly, the material prevails over the human. But this has serious consequences. Again, I repeat, that's why I'm here. Look, what is going to... He's done this to... for prosperity of Kashmir. This is supposed to be for the development. These 900,000 troops, what are they going to do when they come out? There'll be a bloodbath. Has he thought it through what happens then? Mr. President, houses, treated like worse than animals. No rights. Thousands of all their political leadership has been arrested, taken out of Kashmir. Even those Kashmiri leaders who were pro-India have been taken out. 13,000 boys have been picked up and taken to God knows which destinations. So what do they think? What will the people of Kashmir do when they lift the curfew? They will be out in the streets. And what will the soldiers do? They will shoot them. They've already used pellet guns, blinded young boys. In the last 6 years, the 5 years, the oppression that has gone on in Kashmir. And so, Kashmiris will be further radicalized. Mr. President, there will be another Pulwama. And guess what? India will blame us. They're already blaming us. They're saying all this is happening because of Pakistan. One of their defense ministers said there are 500 terrorists lined up on the border to go in. Why would Pakistan send 500 terrorists when there are 900,000 troops? What impact are they going to make? What will they do? And don't we know that the moment there is some terrorist attack, all that will happen is there will be further cruelty and oppression of the people of Kashmir. We will just give the 900,000 troops to further crush the people of Kashmir. And then we'll give the Indian government an excuse that, look, Pakistan is a terrorist state, and this mantra that has gone on, Islamic terrorism. The moment you use this catchword, Islamic terrorism, the whole world turns away. No one talks about human rights. You can do whatever you want, which is what has happened in Kashmir, because they keep using this word, Islamic terrorism. And this is what they're doing right now. What do we benefit from further increasing the cruelty on the people of Kashmir? And why would we want this? But there is no other narrative left for India. As when they lift the curfew, whatever happens, Pakistan will be blamed, and there is always a danger of another Pulwama. They might come and bomb us again, and then another cycle might start. And what does Narendra Modi think that 180 million Muslims of India are thinking right now? Aren't they watching these Kashmiris stuck inside for 55 days they've been stuck in? Aren't they watching? What do you think? Don't you think that the Muslims will be radicalized in India? And I'm talking about 180 million people. And when they get radicalized, there will be some incident in India somewhere down the line. Again, we will be blamed. And I'm warning you right now, again we will be blamed. And Mr. President, what about 1.3 billion Muslims who are watching this? And they know that it is only happening in Kashmir because they're Kashmiri Muslims. This is not happening to Kashmiri Hindus. They know that this is happening because of their religion. So what do you think they will be thinking? What do you think the Jewish community would think if they were, forget 8,000 Jews stuck like this? What do you think Europeans would think? What do we think? I mean, any human community, if their members are stuck like that, what do you think they will think? Are we a children of a lesser God? Is it not going to cause us pain? And then I'll tell you what will happen. People will, in the 1.3 billion Muslims, someone will pick up arms. I know we've been brought up with films, Western films. This good, decent guy doesn't get justice. He decides to pick up a gun and start seeking justice. There was a film made in New York, famous film called Death Wish. This guy gets mugged by his family, his wife gets killed or something, he can't get justice, he picks up a gun and he goes around shooting muggers. And the whole cinema cheers him on. So what do you think the Muslims are thinking right now? If there is a bloodbath, there will be Muslims becoming radicals, not because of Islam, but because of what they will see, that there's no justice when it comes to Muslims. There were Rohingya Muslims, Myanmar, who are, God knows, almost 1 million people out, ethnic cleansing. What was the response of the world community? So what do you think will be the response of 1.3 billion Muslims? I picture myself. I'm in Kashmir. I've been locked up for 55 days. I've heard about, and there are rapes, Indian Army going into homes, soldiers. Would I want to live this humiliation? Would I want to live like that? I would pick up a gun. You're forcing people. You're forcing people into radicalization. When people lose the will to live, what is there to live for? And this is what, if you can do this to human beings, you are actually radicalizing people. And so, Mr. President, I want to repeat here, this is one of the most critical times. There will be a reaction to this. Pakistan will be blamed. 2 nuclear-armed countries will come face to face like we came in February. And before we head in that direction, the United Nations has a responsibility. This is why the United Nations came into being in 1945. You were supposed to stop this happening. I feel we are back to 1939. Munich. Czechoslovakia has been taken, annexed. What is the world community going to do? Is it going to appease a market of 1.2 billion, or is it going to stand up for justice and humanity? If this goes wrong, you hope for the best, but be prepared for the worst. If a conventional war starts between the 2 countries, Mr. President,
Maybe Imran Khan is saying something that somebody does not want us to hear. That's why he's been cut off. That's what I suspect. The internet is not free. It is not.
there is no God but one. And we will fight. And when a nuclear-armed country fights to the end, it will have consequences far beyond the borders. It will have consequences for the world, which are suffering because of that. And this is the time. This is the time not to appease like in 1939 appeasement took place. This is the time to take action. And number 1 action must be that
Again, it looks like somebody does not want us to know what the number one action against India should be. So now I'm having no doubt that somebody intentionally is interfering with the transmission of Prime Minister Imran Khan of Pakistan's speech. They are trying to prevent the truth from coming out, as they've been doing for a long, long time. And this...
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Mr. President, Honorable Secretary General.
So they have taken us back to the beginning of Imran Khan's
Excellencies.
speech. The last part was censored.
Ladies and gentlemen, I feel honored today to represent my country at this forum of world leaders, where we have a chance to discuss problems that the world is facing. I want to talk about a lot of problems, but just 4 today. And I especially came to this forum despite a difficult time in my country, facing challenges. I would not have come, but because I feel that there are some very urgent problems which the world must address. So first of all, I start with climate change. So many leaders have talked about climate change. But Mr. President, I feel that there is a lack of seriousness. Perhaps world leaders some of the leaders who can do a lot, do not realize the urgency of the situation. We have a lot of ideas, but as someone said, ideas without funding is mere hallucination. Pakistan, I'll give you start with my own country. Our country is amongst the top 10 nations in the world which are most affected by climate change. We depend upon our rivers. We are mainly an agricultural country. And 80% of the water in our rivers comes from our glaciers. The glaciers not just on the Pakistani side, even India. The river, the 80% of the water in Ganges and the Indian rivers also comes from the glaciers, from the Himalayan glaciers, Karakoram, Hindu Kush. And these glaciers are melting at quite a rapid pace. We detected already 5,000 glacial lakes in our mountains. And if this keeps going, if nothing is done, we are scared that humans are facing a huge catastrophe. In my country, when my party came to power in the province of KP, we planted 1 billion trees in 5 years. Now we've set ourselves a target of 10 billion trees in Pakistan. Idea being to counter the effects of global warming. But one country cannot do anything. This has to be a combined effort of the world. My optimism comes from the fact that humans, the Almighty has endowed humans with great powers. We can do anything, provided our survival instinct is stirred up. And this is really what I hope that the United Nations will take a lead in this.
So
There must be more emphasis.
the live
Richer
streaming
countries
was
must be
stopped,
pushed.
and now we're getting the
Countries that are
replay
responsible
of
for, mainly are responsible
Imran
for
Khan's speech. I
greenhouse
had
gas
heard this
emissions.
before.
They
I don't
must
know
be
when
pushed
you may
because
have
our
joined
country
me or
contributes minuscule amount to
what.
greenhouse gases. So
I'm just trying
I feel
to.
that the United Nations must take leadership in this. My second issue for me right now is even more critical. Mr. President, every year, billions of dollars.
So I will just summarize what. So Imran Khan's live speaking to the United Nations appears to have been cut off the internet. So I will summarize his talk for those of you that joined later. First, he spoke about climate change, which you just heard the last few minutes. I showed again the first few minutes of his speech in a repeat, in which he basically said that he talked about the climate crisis and the melting of glaciers in Pakistan. And then he talked about, the second point was about the plunder of the developing countries by, what should we say, money going from the poor countries to the rich countries through the corruption of the politicians. And he talked about how in Pakistan, when he took over 1 year ago, a little over a year ago, that in the previous 10 years, just trying to remember the exact figure now, he said, I think the first 60 years of Pakistan's existence, the amount of debt that was accumulated, 4 times that amount of debt was accumulated in the previous 10 years before he took over, which mainly was because the wealthy elite, the leading politicians especially, they stole money from Pakistan and they purchased big properties, or they deposited money in secret bank accounts. So he said that this must be stopped. This facility that has been given to corrupt leaders to put their money, take their money abroad and purchase properties or put them in secret bank accounts has plundered not only Pakistan, many poor countries in the world whose poverty has been increased because of this incredibly. And of course, it's horrible, the corruption of the leaders. So something should be done to stop this, he said. Laws must be put in effect so that these corrupt leaders cannot just steal the money from their country and deposit it somewhere in a rich country. His third point was Islamophobia. And he spoke about how after 9/11 especially, the world has been totally misled into using this term Islamic terrorism. And he pointed out that Islam has nothing to do with terrorism. Islam is actually against terrorism. And Islam, in fact, protects minorities. And so that was his third point he made very, very strongly, that the Western world especially, but the whole world, has been so misled into identifying Islamic terrorism. And this is used as an excuse. Islamic terrorism, so-called, is now used as an excuse to do anything against Muslims. And then finally he spoke about Kashmir and how it's horrible and incredible, unbelievable. For the last 55 days, 8 million Kashmiris have been under curfew, locked up in their own homes, or many, many thousands of them have been disappeared. At least I think he said 16,000 young boys, young men have been taken from their homes, and nobody knows where they've gone. Their relatives can't find out. And all the leading politicians of Kashmir have been arrested and taken out of Kashmir, even the ones who were pro-India. They have all been removed from Kashmir, and nobody knows where they are. And so what is going to be the result? Especially, he said, when this curfew is lifted, what is going to happen? Nobody can say. He said Modi obviously did not think this out very carefully. What's going to happen? He said there's going to be a bloodbath. When the curfew is lifted, do you think the Kashmiris will accept this sort of injustice? No, they're going to protest. And what's going to happen? The 900,000 Indian security forces in Kashmir, that's the official figure. Who knows how many? There may be more than that. But anyway, around 1 million, more or less, Indian security forces are in Kashmir suppressing 8 million Kashmiris. 1 for every 8. And what's going to happen? There will be a bloodbath. The Indian forces will shoot. And of course, they'll blame Pakistan, he said repeatedly. Imran Khan Sahib pointed out repeatedly that India will blame Pakistan for the reaction that the Kashmiris are going to have when the curfew is lifted. So he warned what the consequences of this would be. And then, as he was speaking on these topics, the live stream was cut off. And I said at that time, and I'll repeat, some people don't want the world to know what's happening in Kashmir. They don't want to know what Imran Khan is saying. So in my opinion, at least, I may be wrong, but it seems quite clear to me, just when he was talking about the most critical issues, more than once, the live stream got cut off. All right, so I think maybe that's enough. I could see if there are any vital questions, but I think I don't want to take any more time. I'll just read a couple of comments. Azmat Rauf Murad has written, "My words, absolutely stunning legend this man. This man can go to the last point of hope. Remarkable Imran Khan." It really is incredibly amazing, such a great leader as Imran Khan, how intelligent he is and how clear-spoken he is, and how he has raised this issue, especially of Kashmir, before all the world, except that his live stream got cut off. But he was very articulate, very, very intelligent and well-spoken, and of course, honest person. All right, so you can probably find his speech on the internet elsewhere. I was watching it on Imran Khan Official on Facebook. It's www.facebook.com/Imran Khan Official /videos. Gives the number. I'm sure you can go on Imran Khan Official's Facebook page and watch this, although it won't be live, of course. It'll be the video. Okay, thank you all very much. Pakistan Zindabad. Khalistan Zindabad. Kashmir Zindabad. Khalis Pakistan Zindabad. I made a post earlier today that Khalis Pakistan will expand all of Punjab, Indian Punjab and Kashmir, and a great deal more of India will become part of Khalis Pakistan up to the Jamuna River in the north and up to Andhra Pradesh in the south. That will all become part of Khalis Pakistan. And the southern part of India, the Panchra Dravida, will become Dravida Desh. And the eastern part of India will become Bangladesh. And there will be some small Bharat left in what is now UP and MP, Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh, and some of that region will be all that's left of India, inshallah. Because when people are like, unfortunately, the BJP-led government, the RSS, they are so fanatical and unjust, and they use deceit and threats and terrorist acts and oppression, as they're doing in Kashmir now, this will have a reaction. And we will see, not too long, inshallah, we will see that the people of India themselves will not tolerate this. And India will change. India will be forced to change because the people of India themselves will see through all these lies and deceit that the Modi government is repeating over and over. And they will realize that their own government has become a terrorist government, a fascist government, and they won't allow it anymore. I think eventually then Rahul Gandhi will become the Prime Minister of India, and he is a good man, just the opposite of Modi. He at least wants friendship with Pakistan, and he wants friendship between members of all religious communities and ethnic groups in India, and then I think there will be peace between Pakistan and India, but not impossible. It is impossible under the present government because, as Imran Khan pointed out in his speech, this RSS organization, its policy is to ethnically cleanse Muslims from India. And they are actually doing it now. So that will not be stood for by the Indian people. So we will, inshallah, see this new development in the near future. I'm going to be talking about this more. Okay, thank you all very much. Allah Hafiz.